Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Daily Packers Post, where we provide daily in-depth coverage of your Green Bay Packers. We continue our series on the Packers position by position as we take a deep dive and a look at the defensive ends. Now, last year, these players would have been listed as edge rushers. Most of them would have been considered outside linebackers rather than defensive ends. But when Joe Barry was let go and Jeff Hafley came in, he moved from a three-man front to a four-man front. So these players all moved from outside linebacker to defensive end, and all of a sudden they had their hand on the ground and were starting most plays in a three-point stance. Now, this change did require some adjustments, and it did have an impact on the numbers and the play of a lot of these players who really did have some disappointing seasons when it came to pass rush. Against the run, this group did much, much better in the four-man front than they did in the three. So the first player we're going to take a look at is Rashan Gary. Now, his sacks went down from 9 to 7.5, although even though statistically he did not have a particularly good season rushing the passer, he did earn an invitation to the Pro Bowl. Now, Gary always struggled to hold the edge when he was playing outside linebacker. Far too often, players would he wouldn't stay in his lane and end up giving up a big gain, whether it was on a run or a short pass, because that area had been vacated and Gary over pursued. He improved in that area significantly in 2024, but Gary, especially in the first half of the season, had trouble playing defensive end as opposed to outside linebacker. And that's a little surprising because at the University of Michigan, he did play on the defensive line. So in the second half, he certainly played better, but again, the quarterback sacks were down by 1.5 over the previous year, and quarterback hits, he had 22 hits in 2023, only 15 in 2024, and hopefully now, after having a full season under Jeff Hafley, he'll be in a much better place next season in 2025. The other starter at defensive end at the beginning of the season was Preston Smith, but Smith, the veteran, had even more trouble adjusting to a four-man front. He had played in a three-man front his entire career, and quietly and in a classy manner, Smith asked to be traded at the NFL trade deadline, which was after 9 games, and the Packers obliged. He recorded 2.5 sacks in those 9 games, but clearly he didn't feel comfortable playing in Jeff Hafley's defense, and he was traded to Pittsburgh. And I think it wasn't so much that the team missed what he did on the field in the first 9 weeks, because obviously he wasn't comfortable in playing up to his capacity, but I think they did miss his veteran leadership in the second half of the season. Who stepped in when Preston Smith was traded? Well, it was Kingsley and Enagbare. Enagbare started the last 7 games of the season, and he recorded 4.5 sacks, only had 2 the previous year, forced 2 fumbles, and had 6 tackles for loss. And, Enagbare shows flashes, and he is a good player, but not a great player at this stage. Now, we thought he might miss a significant part of the season after he was injured in the playoff win against Dallas last year. Turned out he didn't need surgery and was able to play through it. And, the big question is whether Enagbare takes another step forward and stays a starter in 2025. But he did provide a consistent amount of production while playing a little less than half of the team's defensive snaps. The backups, the rotational guys, well, you start with 2023 first-round pick Lukas Van Ness. And again, like some of the other players, Van Ness did a good job against the run, but his pass rush skills remain under-realized. And, he had 4 sacks as a rookie, only recorded 3 this season. And the big reason for that, he has one move, and that's a bull rush. He needs to work on some secondary and tertiary moves that he can apply when the bull rush doesn't work, or that he could use off the bull rush to try to make a play after, an offensive lineman has started to block him. And let's face it, if the lineman knows the move you're going to make, you're going to be less effective than if you have 2 or 3 or more moves and you can change them up and keep that offensive lineman off balance. He did play 39% of the team's defensive snaps. That was up from 33% in his rookie year. And I think the firing of defensive line coach Jason Reprovich will have an impact on Van Ness. One of the reasons they fired him was because they did not feel that he was teaching technique well enough. Van Ness needs to work on that technique during the offseason, during OTAs, during training camp. The talent, the raw athletic ability is there, but he needs to fine-tune his menu of skills. Brenton Cox got a big opportunity in the final 7 games of the season. Before the trade of Preston Smith, Cox barely saw the field at all on defense, both in 2023 and in 2024. He recorded 4 sacks and had 5 tackles for loss in those 7 games. And again, here is a guy who really has the skills, ended up not being drafted for some questionable off-the-field issues. And the fact that he showed some raw ability and made some nice pass rush moves bodes well for him to take a step forward in 2025. Don't be surprised to see Brenton Cox Jr. playing a bigger role on the defense next season if he stays healthy and continues his development. Arron Mosby, he surprised a lot of people by making the team. He was exceptional in the final preseason game, and that certainly paid off. He made the team and played in 16 games, didn't see a lot of action on defense, only played 15% of the Packers' defensive snaps, but also did contribute on special teams. Broke up 2 passes, recorded half a sack. And again, Mosby made the team with that strong preseason. Now we have to see what else he can do in his development. I get the feeling that Arron Mosby is going to be on the bubble again in training camp next year, and it'll depend on the competition and injuries and a whole lot of other factors as to whether or not Mosby makes the roster or the practice squad next year. I think that the overall struggles of the defensive line to provide a pass rush with just 4 guys, it caused Jeff Hafley to have to make some different blitz packages and change the way he wanted to run the defense. So that's why Reprovich was let go. And now the question is Brian Gutekunst satisfied with the roster he has, or does he bring in a veteran defensive lineman to add to that mix? Or does he bring in, use a high draft pick on day 1 or day 2 to fortify the defensive end / edge rusher position? Either one of those is possible, and I think we need to see some improvement in this area. For an overall grade, I gave this unit a C+, mainly because of their failure at providing consistent pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which is the number one thing you want from defensive ends. The run defense improvement kept this grade from going lower, but the fact that none of the players who started, and you add Lukas Van Ness, really met or exceeded expectations this year keeps this grade at a C+. For more in-depth daily coverage of your Green Bay Packers, you can check out our website at thepackerspost.com. Don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube and hit the bell so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. I'm Gil Martin. I am the founder and host of this show and the editor of thepackerspost.com. Don't forget, we're here every day, Monday through Friday, bringing you in-depth coverage of your Green Bay Packers. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And, of course, go Pack Go.